Hello and welcome to the top 10 LEGO Castle MOCs of the month. Today we're going to be taking a look at my favorite medieval MOCs made in February 2024. Before we get into the list, if you'd like to enter to be in the next video, please send me a DM on Instagram or tag me in a post of your MOC. All artists featured today will be linked in the description below. Let's get right into the list. At number 10 we have the Fright Knight's Castle by Bricks. Bricks has a massive medieval layout that has been heavily covered by people like Beyond the Brick and Atlanta Brick Co. But today I want to focus on one of the newer elements of their build, the Fright Knight's Castle. It is made with a ton of dark bluish gray bricks and is accented nicely with a couple of different red tones. This is easily the most impressive looking Fright Knight's MOC I have ever seen, and it's got me wanting to build a Fright Knight's Tower in the same style as this MOC. Those dark bluish gray bricks just work so well for the Fright Knight's aesthetic, and the dark red on parts of the castle look great as well. If you would like to get a better look at this MOC, I'd highly recommend you check out the Beyond the Brick video on this MOC. It is seriously worth a watch. Next up at number 9, we have the Medieval High Street by Arselus.bricks. This to me almost feels like a more affluent and rich version of the Medieval Town Square set. My favorite of the buildings is definitely the red shop that has a variety of meats, veggies, and what looks like pottery to me for sale. The thatched roof looks great with all of the grill parts in tan and dark tan, and the half timber style on the walls is really nicely done. This little design here that they've got above the window looks awesome as well. The other two buildings, I can't lie, aren't my favorite, but they still look pretty sweet. The windows on the big tower look really nice with the pre-molded 1x1 pillars, and the gargoyle statue over the door is a lovely touch. My main critique of the tower and the white building is that they just feel a little plain compared to the red one. Still though, this is a great MOC, and Arselus has a ton of other sick projects that you should check out on his Instagram linked below. Next up at number 8, we have the Dwarven Smith by the Magic Brick. You can definitely feel the influence of the Medieval Town Square ideas set in this MOC, but it does some things better than that set, I think. The roof is one of those. The style of tiling just looks a bit more realistic to me, and I think translates well onto smaller buildings compared to the Nexonite tiles that can look a little too large for certain MOCs. The open air forge under this balcony is very well done, and the oven in the forge looks a lot better than the one in the ideas set. The forge also has some nice interior details as well, with some of the designs coming straight from the blacksmith set's bottom floor. The living quarters of this building is also really nicely done, and my favorite bit of it is definitely the Gryffindor sword above the fireplace. Speaking of, I love that the fireplace is directly on the other side of the forge. That is a really nice attention to detail. I would be super interested to see how this looks next to his Fantasy Inn MOC because I feel like they would go together quite well. Please go check out the Magic Brick on Instagram, they've got some great stuff on there. And next up at number 7, we have the Black Falcon's Armory by the Thelegonook. I love interiors a ton, and simple interiors are my absolute favorites. This is a very basic MOC of a Black Falcon recruit training in a castle armory. The flooring is nicely done and follows a simple hardwood grid, and the weapon rack works great for what it is. I love featuring builds like this one because it just goes to show that you don't need a ton of crazy techniques or parts to make something look nice. If you have a very small parts collection, you could easily make something just like this. So if you were like I was a couple of years ago and didn't want to build MOCs because you lacked parts or experience, just try and build something small like this. I guarantee you will be surprised by what you can come up with. If you're looking for more inspiration for small vignette style builds, then you should go check out the Thelegonook on Instagram. Next up at number 6, we have the Wizard's Workshop by Slimjimlego. This is just a plain fun MOC. The autumn color tree bursting out and through the roof just looks awesome, and the messy looking roof is incredible. It reminds me a bit of Radagast the Brown's house from The Hobbit. Also, the dull color of the roof works really well here because it allowed for him to add in all of these bright fantasy elements in the interior and on the outside that stand out way better than if the roof was a bright green or bright yellow color. It really just goes to show that you can use colors like olive green and dark tan while still having it be a playful and whimsical looking scene. I would love to see this MOC expanded in the future. It really feels like a scene that could be built up a ton. Maybe continue the forest with more of those bright light orange trees and some more cottages like this one. Or maybe even build up the house into a full wizard's tower. I don't really know, but it's just a very fun MOC. Please go check out James on Instagram. He is always posting some really great stuff. Now cracking into the top 5, we have the Ballista Tower by Corvus Ariak at number 5. This is an insanely well detailed tower with a beautiful string of vines climbing up it. These small tower turrets on the corners of the build are my favorite part, I think. I just love all of these small arrow slits, the curved walls, and the black roofs look great. Sometimes these curved towers that are attached to square buildings can look a little off or misplaced, but these do not whatsoever. The texturing on the walls is rough and highly detailed, but doesn't look messy. This style of greebling can very easily dive into the over-detailed side of the pool, so I am really surprised by how nice this tower looks. I think the more smooth bits of the build might be helping to balance out that look. This flag design on the highest point of the build is really nicely done and looks super realistic. This wooden outcropping here on the tower is adding in a lot of that realism that is kind of missing in a lot of LEGO Castle MOCs. Historically, castles would have large sections of them covered in these wooden battlements, and this one shows that. Overall, just a terrific MOC, and you should go check them out over on Instagram. Next up at number 4, we have the Warrior's Path by Darkside.bricks. This MOC is actually one of the video game God of War, but I think it fits right in with the medieval Lego theme still. The bulk of this build is the snow-covered Norse cabin. The angled roof here looks great, and I love the technique that he used to make these icicles. The trees around the building are very simple, but work well with that tangled together style. This is a really finicky technique, and if you've ever tried it, I'm sure you know what I mean, but it looks great when they aren't falling apart. Overall, I think this scene looks wonderful, and any God of War fan would immediately recognize this scene. You can check out more of their builds over on Instagram, linked below. Next up at number 3, we have another one by Slimjimlego. So I normally try to make sure that each place is a different person, but James's updated medieval cog build is just so good I had to include it. This is a red Falcon cog. A cog is a type of medieval ship for those unaware. I just love the scale of this build, and I could totally see LEGO releasing a set super similar to this one. The new addition to this MOC is the sea monster's tentacles and the base plate around it. It's such a fun idea and looks surprisingly natural. The plant piece on one of the end of the tentacles was such a clever idea to grab the soldier's paddle, and the big googly eyes add in a bit of that LEGO goofiness to the scene. Over here you'll spot where a knight has cut a tentacle in half, and over here a soldier has been lifted off the boat into the sea. As always, I'd highly recommend you check out James on Instagram, and if you're interested in building this medieval cog ship, you can actually find the instructions on his Rebrickable page. Next up at number 2, we have the Gates of Caris Galadon by Lego. Okay, so this is a Lord of the Rings MOC, but I had to include it. The trees are fantastic. They are monotoned, but man, they look perfect. The winding roots at the base of the tree are so well done with the different curved white pieces, and the bright light orange leaves go so well with the white trunks. They are pretty reminiscent of the tree from the modular bookshop set, and man, they translate really well here. But the real reason that these trees shine so well is because of the rest of the MOC. The builder chose a very muted color palette for the rest of the build. The gate itself is the only exception to this with its sand green and gold elements, but the rest of the MOC is made up of colors like dark tan, olive green, and different grays. This isn't a critique of the MOC, by the way. It is made way better for it. Ignoring the colors and the trees for a moment, this bridge is really fantastic. I love the slight angle that they got on it, and the snot techniques work super well here. They've also blended the angle of the bridge into the rest of the terrain really nicely. Overall, I am a huge fan of this build, and the composition looks great. Lego has some other Lord of the Rings inspired builds that I think you would love, so go check them out on Instagram, linked below. And finally, at number 1, we have the 3-in-1 Castle remake by Pantelismanthos. Like many others, the 3-in-1 Castle was one of the first sets to get me back into LEGO Castle, and this MOC takes all of the design elements that I loved from that set and has remixed them into a modern, realistic looking castle. I much prefer the light bluish gray and olive color scheme of this one to the dark bluish gray of the original set. It just looks a lot better in my opinion. I could see some people not liking this MOC because of the lack of bright colors that the original had, but I think the drab colors of this work really well for the style that he went for. It's funny, when you look at this build, it almost feels like a one-to-one remake, but when you look closer, you'll notice things that are just ever so slightly different. The tops of the tower on the main gate are a good example of this. He has ditched the large Nexonite tiles in favor of smaller, more detailed crenellations. A more obvious change in the build is the watchtower on the right. The wooden tower has been replaced by a stone one, and I honestly think it looks a lot better. I think when the castle is all closed up, you get a much better sense of how large this castle is compared to the 3-in-1 set. The towers are a whole lot beefier, and again, that tower in the back has a lot more height. I think the one and only thing I dislike about this MOC is the olive green color on the gatehouse. I feel as though a different color here, maybe in white, would have looked a lot better. Actually, now that I think about it, I think that white would have looked good on all of the wooden parts of this build. Even so, this MOC is a real treat, and the best part is that you can actually buy the instructions to the MOC on his Rebrickable page. It will no doubt be expensive to source all the parts, but I think the end result might just be worth it. So please go check out Pantelis on both Instagram and Rebrickable, linked below. And that concludes the top 10 medieval MOCs of February 2024. If you want to see your MOC in the March video, please send me a DM on Instagram or tag me in a post. Please go check out all of the artists featured today, linked in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.